deployed. And everybody in the shuttle program, the crew is go for launch. Roger, nice to be in orbit. We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
And there it is. You're looking at the American-made rocket and spacecraft that will return American astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttle, last flown nearly 9 years ago. Today, we're giving it another shot with our partners at SpaceX. Wednesday's first attempt was postponed due to that wild weather. But if all goes well today, we will mark a new first in NASA's storied history and usher in the commercial crew era of American spaceflight.
At 3:32 Eastern Time this afternoon, NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken are expected to lift off from Pad 39A aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket. If the weather cooperates, today's attempt will mark SpaceX's first ever flight with crew and the beginning of a new chapter in human spaceflight.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Kennedy Space Center, home of the wild Florida weather, which is why we're sitting inside again today, but this time a little bit closer with some plexiglass between us.
Yes, and I'm Lauren Lyons, a senior Starlink development engineer at SpaceX, and joining us today is retired astronaut and NASA meatball lover, Leland.
Thank you, Lauren and Marie. It's great to be back. That weather was really wild last what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Yes, it feels like yesterday. I don't know if depending on how much you slept, could be the same day.
I
but
didn't
I
sleep
think it was
much.
Wednesday.
But down to T minus 17, and our teams made the right call. You know, we didn't want to go through that weather and have something happen. And I think that, you know, we're back to this hallowed ground thing, Pad 39A. We are, you know, my time back there was in 2008, 2009 on Space Shuttle Atlantis, launching to the International Space Station and building out the International Space Station. So now Doug and Bob can launch Crew Dragon and go to an assembly complete space station.
Yeah, and I know it's been really touch and go with the weather.
Yeah.
We were looking at it last night, we were looking at it this morning. The teams are going to continue to monitor things, so it's kind of touch and go, but at last check it was a 50-50 chance. So hopefully those odds are going to be, I don't know if they're going to improve, but 50-50 is not bad. It could be worse, right? So we have teams all over the country covering the action from SpaceX headquarters in California, Mission Control in Houston, and our social media desk in Washington, and of course, right here in Florida.
Today's mission will be Crew Dragon's second test flight and its first test with humans on board. We're a little more than 4 hours away from liftoff. Bob and Doug have had their lunch and have completed their medical checks in advance of launch. It's in about 15 minutes, NASA is going to turn the crew over to the SpaceX team. And once that happens, there are a series of key milestones to complete as we count down to T0. The first one is suit up. Now, the suit-up room is located in NASA's Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, or the ONC. Here, the SpaceX team is going to help the astronauts put on their suits and perform key suit checkouts. From there, the next step is crew walkout. The astronauts are going to leave the ONC building for final goodbyes with friends and family gathered outside of the facility before they head out to the launch pad.
And following final goodbyes, the crew will get in a Tesla and begin the roughly 20-minute drive to Pad 39A. Now, once at the pad, the crew will ascend the fixed service structure in order to board the spacecraft in a process we call crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and the vehicle interactions are all functioning properly.
And after all the vehicle and crew checkouts are completed, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's hatch with Bob and Doug safe inside. About 40 minutes before launch, the crew access arm, which is that long suspended walkway that the astronauts are going to use to board Dragon, it's going to retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system.
Once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, that's when propellant loading on the Falcon 9 rocket will begin. About 5 minutes before liftoff, Dragon will be configured for what we call terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the vehicle.
And at T0, again, a little over 4 hours from now, if all goes well and the weather cooperates, Crew Dragon and Falcon 9 will lift off from Pad 39A, carrying astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Roughly 12 minutes after liftoff, Dragon will separate from Falcon 9's second stage, enter its activation phase, and begin using its own onboard propulsion system to carry Bob and Doug to their destination, which is the International Space Station. And as I mentioned previously, Bob and Doug are just finishing up their lunch, and we are currently awaiting their arrival to the suit-up room.
And while we await that, you will notice over the course of this broadcast that we do not have crowds gathered here at Kennedy Space Center. And that, of course, is one is to protect each other and our teams. We would normally have tens of thousands of guests here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida to view the launch. But even though we couldn't host a lot of guests here, you can still join us through every step of this historic mission from wherever you are. We have a team dedicated to those of you following along on social media, and NASA's Tahira Allen is in Washington right now leading that effort. Hi, Tahira.
Hey, Marie, and hey, everyone out there. My name is Tahira Allen, and if you are one of the 4.9 million people tuning in on Wednesday, we are so glad to see you here again. If you weren't able to witness the pre-launch activities on Wednesday, you are in luck because I'm here to bring you all the excitement happening on social media around the nation. This is a big day for both NASA and SpaceX, and we are ready for you to be a part of it. We had a lot of people engaged on Wednesday, so we want to see if we can top that energy today. We will be sharing your photos and thoughts live on air during today's broadcast, so don't hold back and show us how you're getting ready for liftoff. You can join the conversation by using the hashtag LaunchAmerica on NASA's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'll be monitoring that hashtag LaunchAmerica all day to highlight your social media posts throughout the show. You'll also be able to engage in social media polls during today's broadcast. And so even if you tuned in before, these are brand new polls, so just head on over to NASA's Twitter to cast those votes. So I know most of you are tuning in from home today, but that doesn't mean you can't get involved in the action. Check out NASA's Instagram and Facebook to find our Launch America augmented reality filters. They place you right at Kennedy Space Center, and you can actually see the Falcon 9 rocket lift off in a pair of sunglasses. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our first ever global NASA social. So head on over to NASA's Facebook to join the group. We've got all new social badges, a nice fresh photo here, some Q&As with some very special guests, and also behind-the-scenes tours of Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And not to mention, just an awesome community of people excited to witness this moment. So, just right here, in training, getting ready for that Launch America. So if you're just tuning in, to get us started, we have a poll for you on Twitter right now. We want to know what NASA logo you are sporting for today's launch. The iconic meatball or the iconic worm? Head on over to NASA's Twitter to cast those votes. And with that, let's head back to Lauren at Kennedy Space Center. Lauren?
Thanks, Tahira. I don't want to sway the vote, but you know, I'm all about that worm.
Meatball.
The debate rages on.
Aside from our debate, the purpose or the main purpose of today's demonstration mission is to put Crew Dragon through the final operational tests to officially certify the vehicle for human spaceflight. The SpaceX and NASA teams have put years of work in development, testing, and training to get us here today. And now we are just around the corner from seeing Falcon 9, Crew Dragon, and Bob and Doug lift off from that first sent humans to the moon more than 50 years ago.
Now, it's really good that we're inside today because I'm still ready to run across there and try to hitch a ride to space on that Crew Dragon. It's a beautiful vehicle what SpaceX and NASA have done together to create this incredible rocket. It makes me want to just run out that door right now and get out.
Elon, I don't know if you've seen some of the comments on social media. You've been nominated by a lot of followers to fly one of the future missions of Crew Dragon. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
So we are just about 3 miles from Launch Complex 39A. Leland, don't get any ideas. I know that's not that far. That's where liftoff will happen in a little over 4 hours. And so we want to check in now with the team at SpaceX Hawthorne, where NASA's Dan Hewitt and SpaceX's Jesse Anderson are keeping an ear on operations. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning, Marie. Thanks so much. First off, hashtag Team Worm. But hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name's Dan Hewitt. We're here for round 2 for this historic launch.
And Dan, we're so glad to have you back here today. Hopefully the weather is working in our favor today. It looks really sunny and nice out there, so fingers crossed. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX, and we are so honored to be NASA's partner in returning humans to space from the shores of Kennedy Space Center. 10 years ago, we sent the Dragon that's displayed right behind us on its first orbital demonstration flight, and I speak for all of us here at SpaceX when I say we could not be more excited to finally be sending humans to the International Space Station.
And just as a refresher, today's mission is known as Demonstration Mission 2 or Demo 2. This is going to be the first time a commercially built spacecraft will launch people to the space station. Demo 2 is an end-to-end flight test from launch to docking all the way to splashdown in the Atlantic at the end of their mission. And this is the final test for NASA to certify SpaceX for regular crew flights to the space station. Right now, SpaceX and NASA have teams working together around the country. On the SpaceX side, they have teams at the Cape performing final launch day checkouts as we speak, just to make sure Dragon is healthy and good to go.
At the moment of liftoff, we will transfer authority over Dragon from our firing room in Florida to Mission Control here in Hawthorne. Mission Control will have insight and command of Dragon systems for the entirety of this upcoming mission. And since Dragon is a highly autonomous vehicle, our teams in Mission Control will be continuously monitoring the health and performance of the spacecraft through the entire duration of its journey. That's from liftoff all the way until Dragon splashes back down on Earth.
While there are a number of people on headset here in Mission Control right behind us, the mission director is the one in charge. It's also where the SpaceX Core, which stands for Crew Operations Responsible Engineer, who's essentially the voice talking to astronauts throughout their flight, will reside.
Dragon and Falcon 9 together have years of operational experience, or what we refer to as flight heritage. SpaceX has successfully completed 22 flights of Dragon to and from orbit since 2010, and that includes 21 trips to the International Space Station. And to get us where we are today, not only have we conducted thousands of hours of testing, but we've also enhanced and added a number of safety features to Dragon.
One of the most important safety features on Crew Dragon is the launch escape system. It's a huge advancement in the safety of human spaceflight, and SpaceX was able to demonstrate the system in two important tests. The first one coming back in 2015 with the pad abort test, which we're watching some video back from right now. And then a little bit more recently, last January of this year, the in-flight abort test. Dragon's launch escape system is outfitted with 8 Super Draco engines that are integrated directly into the spacecraft body. This enables Dragon to separate from Falcon 9 and carry astronauts to safety in case of an emergency on the launch pad or all the way up to orbit.
And in addition to the launch escape system, SpaceX has completed over 80 parachute tests, which includes nearly 30 tests of just the upgraded Mark III parachutes that's flying on today's vehicle. And that's to ensure a safe landing back on Earth, even in the unlikely event that one of those 4 main parachutes fails.
And we can't forget the significance of our first demonstration mission just last year, which itself was an end-to-end flight test to and from the International Space Station, just no actual humans on board. But now, though, let's go to the one and only SpaceX's Principal Integration Engineer, John Insprucker, for our first status update. John?
Oh, you're so kind, Dan. Good morning from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. As Dan said, I'm John Insprucker, and I'll be bringing you status updates throughout today's countdown. We're currently just inside T-minus 4 hours, 9 minutes. Today, as mentioned, is our second launch attempt. The first attempt was scrubbed on the 27th. In that attempt, the team proceeded deep into the countdown, but when 3 weather rules concerning lightning and cloud cover were no-go, and there was no chance of improving, the SpaceX launch director stopped the countdown at just inside T-minus 17 minutes, and the launch was scrubbed. Now, following the scrub, we drained back the propellants from Falcon 9, and the crew left the capsule and returned to crew quarters. Now, since the scrub, Falcon 9 has remained vertical on the pad, as you can see there on the monitor. It's remained powered up. The launch crew currently reports no significant issues on the Falcon 9. Minimal activity has occurred on Dragon over the same period. The most significant task was topping off oxygen and nitrox in the environmental control system. Now, we just finished up a weather briefing to the crew a few minutes ago. Conditions at Kennedy Space Center for launch, 50% chance of violating conditions, which is also 50% chance of good conditions. The basic concerns are precipitation, cumulus thick clouds, anvil clouds, all related to the threat of lightning. We're also watching the weather downrange in case there is an abort and Dragon has to splash down off the coast. Further, several hundred kilometers away, we are watching a series of weather patterns that look like they're going to be good, so we are continuing into the count right now. Coming up at T-minus 4 hours, the SpaceX launch director will perform a poll. That'll verify the conditions are safe there at the pad to open it back up to just the support crew. That support team will enter the area and begin preparations for arrival of the astronauts at the White Room at about T-minus 3 hours. Following that poll, the launch director will provide a countdown status briefing. We might be able to hear that depending upon what's going on the nets. But right now, as the clock continues counting down, we're going to check in with Gary Jordan. He is with the flight control team at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Mission Control, Houston. How are the teams looking there, Gary?
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to Mission Control Houston. This room you see behind me is one of 3 flight control rooms at the Johnson Space Center, also known as Flight Control Room 1. This is where teams monitor and direct all of the operations on the International Space Station. It remains staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And today the team is especially focused on monitoring today's launch operations and making final preparations for Bob and Doug to dock with the station tomorrow morning. Today, I'm joined remotely by NASA astronaut Rex Walheim, who was on that last flight from American shores 9 years ago, STS-135, with Doug Hurley. Rex flew on 2 shuttle missions before that and is now the Deputy Director of Safety and Mission Assurance here at the Johnson Space Center. Rex, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Gary. Nice to be here.
Now, Rex, we're closing in on the suit-up process for Bob and Doug down at the Cape. What were some of the thoughts going through your head as part of the crew suiting up for a shuttle flight for the very last time?
It's just it's a really exciting time. You've kind of practiced it many times before, but you know this is for real. But again, you never know for sure whether it's going to be for real. So for STS-135, we only had a 30% chance of launching on our actual launch day. So you're thinking, it's probably not going to happen. But you know, we got to be ready for game day, and so you get suited up. And you walk out those storied corridors where Neil Armstrong walked out before he went to the moon, and get on the Astrovan in our case and head out to the launch pad.
Rex, as I recall, the weather was not so favorable for STS-135 in the beginning of the day, but started looking a little bit better towards launch time, and you were able to get off the pad, though you had to scrub for weather on 110 and a few times on 122. It seems to be a normal thing for human spaceflight.
Yes, it is. It's like I say, you never know what your launch day is, so you have to be prepared anyways, no matter whether the vehicle may have issues that they're working at the last minute or the weather may not cooperate. So you get ready and do the countdown. And on STS-135, it didn't look very good. Like I said, we had only a 30% chance of go. And so we got out there anyways, and we got strapped in, and we weren't sure whether there was going to be go or not. And our commander looked outside and said, well, I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news, it's raining, but the good news is it looks like it's clearing to the west. And sure enough, they brought the count back down to T-minus 9, where they checked the weather, and they decided it was go. And so, hey, we're going. This is going to be great. Then they brought the countdown all the way down to 31 seconds, and the clock stopped. We didn't get any alarms or anything, and we're kind of looking around, what's going on? And we heard over the intercom that the launch was halted due to a malfunction. And we're like, what kind of malfunction? And sure enough, we figured, okay, well, now we're not going to launch for sure. It's just 31 seconds from launch. We've only got like a minute hold time, and so your mood starts going down, and figure, well, doesn't look like it was going to be it. But turned out the team at the Kennedy Space Center knew what the problem was. They wanted to make sure that the gaseous oxygen hood, the arm, had moved out of the way so the shuttle could launch. They took a camera, verified it was, then they picked up the count. And when they pick up the count from 31 seconds, they think, holy cow, now we really are going. And so it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to collect your thoughts, but all of a sudden, T-minus 6 seconds, the engines start up, and at T-minus 0, you feel that big jolt, and hey, it is today, and you get ready to do the mission.
Well, here's to hoping for the best today. NASA astronaut Rex Walheim, thank you for joining us. Let's go back to the Kennedy Space Center to watch the suit up in action as we continue to count down to launch. Leland.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Hey, Rex, it was so great to fly with you on STS-122, and I remember you turning to me saying, hey, Leland, it's going to be great, you're going to do great, and you made me feel so good about launching into space, and I just really appreciate your support and your kindness, and that was a great mission, and I really appreciate you, man.
Hey, it was great fun, Leland, but you're a pretty big guy, and so you didn't exactly leave a lot of space sitting next to you on launch for your buddy here. I kind of had to, kind of scrunch myself to the side. I remember that one sim we had where we put our spacesuits on and got into the simulator, got all strapped in. And you being a former NFL player, having played professional football, like I say, there wasn't a whole lot of room for me, so I kind of squeezed my way the best I could. But I remember saying to our commander, Steve Frick, I said, hey, Steve, next time we fly with a professional athlete, why don't we pick a jockey? You know, so it was a little bit, crowded there, but it was a wonderful flight, and it was absolute pleasure to fly with you, Leland.
Likewise. And when you came home on 135, I was with your family. I remember it was a night landing, and I said, hey, Fergie's back, and your son, I'll never forget this, he said, hi, Dad, and it's all about the families, and you did such a great job on that mission, flying with Doug on that last shuttle mission. So thank you, Rex, for everything you've done. We're going to go live in crew quarters in a minute and see Bob and Doug suiting up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rex. And my takeaway from what Rex had to say is, you're telling me there's a chance. I know there's a chance. There's a pretty good chance, actually, 50% in fact. And the astronaut crew quarters is where astronauts live in seclusion before missions to space, and it's where Bob and Doug have been living for the past 10 days. Now, the suit-up room inside of the crew quarters is something of a national landmark in and of itself. This room was first used as a suit-up room for Apollo 7 back in October 1968. And for every crew mission since then, when launching from U.S. soil, serving 400 different astronauts on a total of 150 missions. This is the room where Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins suited up over 50 years ago, where astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen suited up for the first shuttle flight, STS-1, back in 1981. And for every shuttle flight over the next 30 years, think of that. Every flight to the moon, every flight of Skylab and Apollo Soyuz, and every single space shuttle flight started in that room. And Leland, I know many of us have experienced some form of quarantine over the last several months, but I would imagine that 2 weeks in quarantine in preparation for a space flight is unlike any other time in your life. What were some traditions that took place?
Oh, we would get together and sit down and sometimes tell jokes and try to make the mood a little bit lighter. We would review our notes and things, but we would bring our families in and have a crew meal together with our families, and that was really touching. And it's just card games, different things to get ready for that iconic mission to space.
Absolutely. In many ways, everything prior to this moment was preparation, and everything after this is the mission. And prior to Wednesday's first attempt that we told you about, the suit-up room was last used for the final shuttle flight, STS-135, in 2011. And I want to mention one more detail about that mission. We want to show you a picture of the crew from the last American space flight launching from U.S. soil. In the picture, if we can bring it up, you'll see Doug Hurley. There it is, Doug Hurley. He was the pilot for STS-135. Today he is the commander of Demo 2, the spacecraft commander. Also suiting up for that mission was Chris Ferguson, Sandy Magnus, and Rex Walheim, who we just heard from a few minutes ago. And we are standing by to go into the suit-up room. We just passed the T-minus 4 hour mark, so suit-up is just beginning now, and there is our first look in the room. There is astronaut Doug Hurley getting into his spacesuit, and he's being helped by one of the suit technicians there. So this is our first look in the room. Again, Doug Hurley, he has flown into space 2 times before. He was the pilot on STS-127 and 135. And there's a wider shot. You can see astronaut Bob Behnken also in view now. Bob is to the right of your screen, and he also flew on 2 shuttle missions. Bob is a native of St. Ann, Missouri. So if you're watching from Missouri, especially St. Ann, wave hi, there's Bob. And Doug is from Appalachian, New York. He was born in Endicott, considers Appalachian his hometown. I know a lot of people there because I'm from there too, so if you're watching from upstate New York, shout out to you there too. This is so cool to see. Leland, this must bring back memories for you.
It does, but you know, it's a little different than when I was suiting up, because there were Apollo era lazy boys that were sitting in and leaning back in, and now they're in these really incredible sleek suits, as well as these the seats that are actually the same seats that are in the Crew Dragon vehicle, and that's pretty amazing.
Yes, these seats are basically ground support equipment seats. They're pretty much the same as the ones in the vehicle, as Leland said. So what they're doing right now is strapping the crew into the seats to prepare for the 2 big checkouts that they're doing right now. They're going to do a comms check, a bidirectional comms check, where they're going to check that the microphones that are inside of the helmets that the crew are wearing, that the suit techs can communicate with them bidirectionally. And they'll also do a leak test, which is a pressure test where they'll pressurize the spacesuit. So the suits are much more than just futuristic looking outfits. They do look like they come from a sci-fi movie. But they, as we described, they're designed to connect directly into Dragon seats to provide communications, cooling, and the ability to pressurize if necessary. A moment ago, you may have seen one of the suit technicians attaching a big white umbilical to the leg of the suit. That is the way in which the communications and the airflow, all of that is happening through that umbilical, which is connected to the seat. So right now, as you can see, the team is getting the crew all buttoned up in their 5-point harnesses and getting ready for those checkouts.
And there's that worm again, Leland, right front and center. How does that make you feel on a spacesuit?
It makes me feel just great, Marie and Lauren. We have a lot of heritage and tradition with the meatball, but I'm able to be a little bit more flexible now that Lauren has beat this worm thing into me. No, but they're getting ready. They're focused. They've had breakfast. They've had chances to talk to friends and family, and it's getting real again. And that 50-50 chance, I'm saying positive on 50% chance of going. Seeing the suit techs around them with these futuristic-looking flight suits versus the white suits that we've had in the past. It's transitioning from that old legacy to this new era in space travel. And I think working with NASA and SpaceX, working together as one team. It's just like what we do in space, work together as an international team to get things done.
Absolutely. And this group really gets to know each other well, too. There's a wave from Doug and a thumbs up. That's so cool to see. I mean, the people in that room get to know Bob and Doug really well because they've rehearsed this so many times, especially the suit techs. The suits are, custom made for each of the astronauts. So I feel like I couldn't even count the number of times they've had like suit fit checks and leak checks and just making sure every detail with the fit and the function is just perfect before they get ready to launch.
And interestingly enough, these suit techs are also the designers of the spacesuit. They've been working with the crew for years as we've been building these suits, their training suits, all of the training events in Hawthorne, where the crew is inside of the Buck, the capsule simulator. This is the team that's been working with them for years. The team that dressed Ripley, which is the ATD, the dummy that flew in Demo 1.
So mannequin, right?
Mannequin, Smarty.
The
There's
Smarty.
lots of names for Ripley.
But the point being, they've been with these suits from cradle to grave and have been working so closely with Bob and Doug.
Pressures and making sure everything looks good prior to arming the launch escape system, but not tracking a constraint at the moment. So overall, Dragon's healthy and ready for crew ingress.
Okay, thank you for the update, MD. And this concludes the countdown briefing.
So you just heard in that briefing there, they're continuing to move forward towards launch. And as we have a view of Doug Hurley there adjusting his visor, again, he is the spacecraft commander for Demo 2. And while he continues the suit up process, we want to give you a closer look at the veteran Marine Corps fighter pilot and spaceflight pioneer.
Very excited. Yeah, very excited.
You feel ready? Still pumped?
Oh yeah, I think we're ready. I think we're certainly ready.
Joining the SpaceX Demo 2 test. He is a Marine Corps colonel and test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 2000. He piloted Space Shuttle Endeavour and Atlantis for STS-135, the final space shuttle mission. Introducing NASA astronaut Doug Hurley.
It's a life-changing process in so many ways to fly into space. It's just overwhelming in some respects. Just the sensations, the rumbling, the shaking, the acceleration. When the engine shut off and you go from, in the case of the shuttle, you go from 3 Gs to 0 Gs instantaneously and things start floating. And I remember distinctly just thinking, what just happened? To see a rocket launch in person is, it's a pretty emotional event. I remember the first time I saw a shuttle launch and it was amazing. And then when I saw a shuttle launch with my wife on it, that is quite the emotional experience. My name is Doug Hurley, and I'm the spacecraft commander for the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station. We are doing the first crewed flight for NASA and for SpaceX. So this is the test flight to prove end-to-end from launch to docking to ISS operations and then entry, descent, and landing. This will be the first time the Dragon had a crew on board, and so there's a myriad of objectives we want to achieve for this mission. SpaceX has been responsible for design and essentially making this vehicle what it is. What the astronauts bring to the table is the crew-vehicle interface. What would work on orbit, what might not work on orbit, what would definitely work. To be able to just have the entire integrated team that's going to support us getting to and from space station, talking together, working through the challenges that simulators typically throw at you. It was really neat being part of it. It's just been an incredible undertaking to see where we've come just in the last 5 years that Bob and I have been a part of this, and to be, shortly flying to the International Space Station with the Crew Dragon. It overwhelms you to think about how many people have, in some way, shape, or form, touched this program and this vehicle to get us to this point. And we are the lucky ones that get to fly it, but we certainly not for one